In this final video of the module, we are going to discuss code attribution and citations. So in computer science, you might be working with a lot of other people. It's a collaborative job. You might also be looking at what people have previously done or what good programmers have typically done. So it's really important to attribute their work by giving them appropriate credit in the citations of your code. Now, if you are getting inspired or you read other ways how people have solved problems, make sure you cite them. And if you even discuss ideas just on whiteboards, conceptually, you should give still credit to the students who you have worked with. Typically, we would advise you, since this is your first programming course, you should not be looking at other students' code or solutions found on the internet, because if you look at them, you will write code such that it will match them, and you will not realize that you are kind of involved in cheating because the lines are a bit hazy. But if you get caught, there are severe consequences. So at this stage, for this particular class, I would definitely recommend you not to look at another student's solution, or not to work with other students on different problems unless we explicitly specify you to work on a lab or a particular problem with your peers. So we will give you at appropriate times how you are supposed to work. So if at any time we say that you have to work independently, that means you should not be looking at any solutions on the internet. Now, if you do take some hints or some ideas from somewhere, typically, let's say if you write 100 lines code and you do not know a function, and maybe you are looking on Stack Overflow on what that function entails, you should cite the resource or the link in your code. And why is this important is because it is polite to give credit where it's due, because sometimes we might be taking somebody else's work and taking some ideas from it, but that doesn't mean that we are the core authors for that work. So it's good to give credit to the person who actually wrote the first solution. The second thing why it's important is because it's often illegal not to, if you use a particular code from found on the internet in one of your codes, once, let's say if you go into industry and if you do that and if you get caught, your programming career is technically over and you might not be able to stay in the industry. You might even go to jail. I don't know if you guys have read a little bit about the lawsuit between the Uber executive. He was a software engineer. He took the code from Google and sold it to Uber, or when he moved across jobs, he took the job and now he has to pay about $175 million to the government because of his act. So it's pretty much over. So don't do it. It's not worth it and you'll get caught eventually. The third one is we do not want you to go to honor code. Again, a lot of students copy code from the internet and they get caught, fail the class. There's no way you can, once you get caught, the penalties are such that you'll reduce 2-letter grades and also you'll get a 0, and then you are at a situation where you technically it's almost impossible to pass the class. So don't do it. That's the key idea, which is stay away from looking at other students' code, especially for this class, because you do not know what's the distinction between cheating and looking at other code and how to prevent it. So the other thing is how can we actually cite code? Let's say if we tell you to collaboratively work, or if you in your later classes, let's say if you are looking at a small segment of code on Stack Overflow, you might need to attribute that code to solve a particular bug or something related to that. So in that case, what you need to do is you can use the double slash or any sort of comments in your programming language, and at the top of the file state from where you are getting the code, which is I'm getting the code, let's say from like you can say in simple English at this stage, which is using whatever XYZ code which was written by Miss or Mr. like ABC, and where you can find it is like just place the link. So this is like, again, this is not like, it will prevent you from going to the honor code, but that doesn't mean you can copy entire chunks or entire file from code and just cite it like this. Like, it's absolutely not allowed that, let's say if you find a solution to a lab online, you're just copying code and citing it. That's absolutely not allowed. But looking at a small function, like if you do not know maybe a specific function in Java and you are taking reference from the internet, citing it is obviously like the best choice you can make. Or if you're looking at some way to fix a bug, just cite the code from where you took help from. Also, if you are discussing conceptually with your peers, cite that I worked with maybe A, B, and C in the lab as the first line in your code. Another thing is, here you can cite your own code, which is like, it's always a good practice to cite your own code with these strings, which is like you can have the author name, title, date, what is the version of the code, and availability. It's good practice. There's also a link given here, like how to cite code. You can read about that later. And practically, like, you always cite code in comments. When you are discussing something in person with anybody, make sure you cite those codes as well, and you discuss it with extended relatives. Anybody who you discuss it with, just cite them. Now, one thing to note here is you cannot cite like you in the citation you cannot state that like my code was done by XYZ person which I hired. There were a couple of students last semester where they did that and they got a 0 because they didn't know what is citable and what is not, which is, you cannot just copy the entire solution from the internet or ask somebody to do it. You cannot cite like some services that allow you to write code on behalf of you by payments. That is absolutely forbidden. And the issue is, like, when you do that, you won't realize, because let's say if you ask somebody to do it, they might have written the solution for another student in the previous iteration, and we check your solution with not only the current solutions but also with all the previous semesters. So if it gets caught up, you are technically gone. Like, you won't be having a say here, like, if you do that. So again, like, it's really important to cite code. That's all for this module. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know, either me or any of the professors, any of the TAs, peer mentors in the course, and we are really looking forward to working with you guys. Thank you.